So your dream project starts with a clear vision. So imagine creating something that not only changes lives, but it also reflects your values. So this is the third part of our 9-part series on starting a transitional housing facility. And in today's episode, we're going to turn your vision into a real housing model that works. So let's dive in. Now, as you are thinking about basically how you're going to design this, you have to design it with who you're serving in mind. So you want to make sure that you're choosing the right niche and the right type of residents that you want to work with. So as you think about that, because this is not an easy process, you have to thoroughly think through what serves you. So as you're thinking, like you've heard me say, I have multiple niches that I've been in, and I know where my heart resonates. Like today, where I started and where I am at today is like night and day. And actually moving into a really wonderful space, which I can't wait to share with you in the next few videos that are to come. But as you're thinking about your niche, you want to choose something that obviously is in your passion. So once you've identified that niche, I encourage you to then flush out even like your thoughts relate to that. So don't just like stop at, oh, I want to serve single mothers, or I want to serve youth aging out of foster care. Think about why you want to do it and then what elements you would put to it, because that can be a determining factor as to which one you choose. You might be like me and have multiple passions that you can work in. So which one are you going to start with first? So you want to make sure you're choosing the right niche and the type of residents that you want to serve in your program. So as you're doing that, it's going to lay out the type of programming you would have for them. And this is why I tell people all the time, make sure you're out in the community and you know what's going on in your neighborhood or in your community of what is needed, because that you might find a gap that's missing, and that's what you really want to do. You don't want to have a similar program that somebody else has, because they've probably been in it longer than you have. So who would someone potentially choose for funding? They're going to choose a person who's been around for a long time that's creating results versus someone who's new and they just have a housing program with some services. So you want to think about what makes you unique, what makes you special in your space, and then begin building that particular piece out. Perfect example I can think of, like right now, I know we have a need desperately for programs for youth that are aging out of foster care. So they identified specifically not just those individuals, but those who, might recognize themselves in the LGBTQ plus community, right? And that is desperately needed right now in our community. And you have a lot of programs that don't even serve LGBTQ plus. That might be an area you are open to if you've got some experience in that can make you different. You could also choose a program, that is in recovery, that's covering maybe some other services that are offered that you're not getting anywhere else. Your job is to determine your niche and the residents you're going to serve, and also have it meet a need that's in your community. So I want to encourage you to do that as you are establishing that. Take some time to do that and understand what those unique needs are, because as you think through those unique needs, that's what's going to separate you from other people. And then I would say from there, as you are building that out, make sure that you're meeting all the requirements that are necessary to meet the needs for the population that you're going to serve too. As you can think about, let's say you're thinking about partnering with someone, for instance, that's providing a service that you don't do directly, you bring somebody in to do that. You're going to want to make sure you're making those right connections. Or if you're working with people who, let's say, are coming out of incarceration You can provide and identify employment services for individuals. That's actually one of the things that we just did just recently, because we're always finding people who are coming out of incarceration, they need employment, and we want them to have employment. So as they're working with their PO and making sure those things, because they have to check those boxes and get them done, but sometimes things happen, they lose their job, and you want to make sure that they can stay in the housing you created. So now you have to have relationships with employers who are friendly to the population that you serve. So those are the dynamics that you need to think about as you enter into this space to make sure you're meeting needs and you are creating something that serves. This reminds me of a person I was working with who wanted to build a program around single mothers. And she had a home, her home was beautiful, large. She was able to customize, like each room was dedicated to them and their children, right? So what she did was she actually went and partnered with a daycare that was close by, so that as she brought people in, she already had a relationship with someone to make sure that if they needed childcare, they had that need met. So that's how you want to be thinking as you are designing your program and your model of services that you're going to offer to your residents. You want to be thinking through that. Now, once again, every program is different. You need to think outside the box. Like the things I'm referencing to you, are things I've experienced, but you could do something completely different that you have to think about as you think about your program you want to offer. So I just want to encourage you, if you've got questions or if there's something I didn't quite address with you here, I want you to feel comfortable to be able to share that with me and sort of ask those questions in the comments below, and then we'll reach back out to you with some of the answers. So as you're moving through that space and wanting to identify and choose a niche that's meeting what your residents need, you now need to think about choosing the right housing model to follow. So you hear me all the time talk about, basically a duplex. I love duplexes because there's a reason why I love duplexes. But you can create a program in a very large home and that has what you need. Of course, shared housing, and I like to lump, shared housing meets so many needs, but shared housing is clearly an amazing path to creating this type of housing, because it's the cost to get into a home or into a duplex is cheaper than doing something larger. But getting into a shared housing model serves, and you can be able to maximize things better, be more cost effective by choosing that. But you have to remember what's required when you have that. I always talk about the rules you need to create to ensure that all things are covered in a shared housing model, if that's what you're creating with your transitional housing model. But there's other things you can do. So it's not just limiting yourself to that. And that makes me think about what we're doing right now. But you've got tiny houses, you got tiny homes, you got people purchasing land, and they're thinking about ways in which they can multiply and impact more people on a small amount of land. Like, those are things that you can consider too as you talk about your transitional housing program. It could be cheaper. I just saw on Facebook, no, not Facebook, no, it was Amazon. How about you can create a mobile home? They have mobile homes less than $10,000. Now, I've not purchased one, but guess what? That's a thought. If you've got at least acreages, like I've got acreages of land that you potentially could create housing for people and create a program and build that out, and you start one at a time, right? Oh, that's a great idea. If someone's wanting to grab a hold of that, definitely reach out to me, because I'd love to partner with you on that. But thinking about ways in which you can maximize land to serve something like that, doing the tiny home model, and creating something that can replicate itself. So those are the things you'll have to think about, because you don't want to set people up for failure who can't afford to, if you're wanting them to buy the house or if you're wanting to rent it. But there's so many things you can do in that space. But I don't want to ignore tiny houses, because that is a real thing that is needed. And you could create a transitional housing model just around that. But my favorite, at least right now, that I'm thinking about is around I guess you can consider it multi-unit buildings. You can call them apartment complexes. I love hotels. That's my thing right now. Hotels. because there's so many things that you're allowed to do in a hotel that you can't necessarily do in an apartment. But I love hotels. But I think that is an amazing model, an apartment complex or a hotel that allows for you to touch as many people as you can. Now, I'm just going to say, those of you listening to me right now and hearing me, I want you to know I'm that person. I'm like a big visionary. So I apologize if it's like too much for some of you, but some of you like that. So if you're that person that likes those big projects, or you're a real estate investor that has, is doing really, really well, you got a lot of capital you want to work with, those are the type of things I want to create across this country, because I can envision those all across the country, being able to impact as many people as you can, keeping their costs down as you are helping to build them up. That's an amazing model. So I'm telling you all this because I get so excited when I talk about this. But you can create whatever you want to create, whatever your heart's desire. If you're that one person that just says, you know what, I'm okay with that one property that caters to 8 people, to however many you can get there, and I'm good with that. I'm okay with you there, as well as that person who says, hey Toni, we could just do this really large project and build it out to impact as many people as we can. So those are the type of things I think about on a regular basis. I'm always constantly creating more and more ways in which we can do this work. But I definitely know no matter where you are in this space, you have to find what works for you and create something that works for others. And you definitely have to then look at whichever one you choose, making sure that you understand what the operational costs are related to each one. Clearly, that first one, you're not going to have as much overhead as you are in something that's larger, but thinking through that, making sure that it's something that you've thought through, because it can be costly if you're not ready for something like that. But typically people are just going to start with this. No, these are the basic costs associated with that, and they're going to be able to move through that. But I want you planning for it and building a budget for each one of them, depending on which one you're leaning toward, and then move from there. And I honestly believe, I met this lady, she's so amazing. She's out there in rural Missouri. She actually got an old hotel at a perfect price and just start catering to veterans, like hand over fist, like, because they needed housing. And out in rural area, you could treat, they have different allowances that they don't have in the city for veterans with vouchers and things like that. Like, they'll make accommodations because it's harder to find housing in the country than it is in the city. So city usually is predominantly 1-bedroom type situations. I think I have seen some where they are like shared housing, but it's slim. And then you've got, of course, in rural area, you can find some that are will accommodate this type of housing. But that was a real life example of, she went with her heart, and now she and her daughter are booming out in rural Missouri in their hotel, and now she has a need for more. Now, is it a lot of work? Absolutely. But when you're doing things from your heart, you don't so much think about the work you put in, because you are rewarded more than a monetary way, but from just being able to give to other people and helping them get off the streets, get their lives together, and get into something more stable for themselves. Now, this last piece we'll talk about is more around creating this space and making sure you're thinking through it. But before we get into that, if you've not subscribed and you aren't getting notifications that I have a new video out, I want you to do that right now. I am excited about the information we're about to share over the next few weeks, and I don't want you to miss it. So be sure to subscribe and do the notifications. And then, of course, going to my school community, that's SKOOL. That's what school is. And you can reach my school at tonischool.com. That's TONISKOOL.com. So definitely reach out to me there. So as we talk through this last segment, it's more around making sure that whatever you create, you want to create something that is going to transform lives and transform people And that's what I stand for. Not everybody wants to do that, and that's okay if you don't want to have a transformational space. If you just want to have a place where people stay and they're good, I'm okay with that. I'm not mad at you. But to be able to create something that changes people's lives, at least to the point where there's a transformation that takes place in them, and that can actually happen even still keeping them in house. My model's a little different. I really want to help them move into something more permanent that they can love and enjoy being with. But whatever toots your horn, I want you to rock with that. But you want to be able to create something that's more than simply a place to sleep, more than simply a place where people lay their heads. You're creating community. You're creating growth. You're creating stability. Those are all the things that you're going to create in the program that you're going to create, and I'm excited for it. You also want to make sure, though, as you're doing that, that you still make sure you honor the privacy of the individuals that are there, as well as their safety. You want to make sure that you are putting together a solid program that meets their needs and gives them the support that they need. That's why knowing your niche and who you're serving is critical, because you need to know what they need. And I would say being able to create something that if they want to share what things they want to have done differently, they can, because you create it, but it could evolve into something bigger and greater. Those people who you are serving in your home, and I really don't like calling it a facility so much, but it's transitional housing home, transitional housing facility, but you want to make sure that you're meeting their needs and let them create their community, because that's what it is. And as you add people to that, it's set. So it's how you set it up. And that's what I love about what is created, to the point where these things run so smoothly. That is my goal, is that you can build a transitional housing home that moves as it needs to move, with seamless, like set it and forget it almost. Like you really set it up so you don't have issues that are popping up. And if there is an issue that pops up, they're able to manage it as a family, because that's what they're creating here. It's not just a place to lay their head. So my goal is that you're creating something that looks at what everyone needs in the home, and you create that. And you want to make sure that if, in the common areas where you're building it out, that it's encouraging community and interaction, that they are engaging with each other, because they are a community, in the kitchen, in the common area, in the living room. You got an area where they can read and study together, where they can have a meeting if they wanted to as a family, because they are that. And then making sure that that the resources you provide them, there could even be a resource room you could provide there that has a computer, where they can get job training, where they can get even therapy, having someone come and meet with them privately, or if you're just going to do classes. The sky is the limit in what you can create. So I want you thinking through how you can maximize what it is that you're building as you get into this space, and I'm excited to see what you create in that journey. So I hope you enjoyed this part of our 9-part series, and I look forward to seeing you at the next one. So go out there and transform your life so that you can transform the world.